Hello everyone, welcome back to the workshop. In this video we are going to be forging a blank that I sell over at my website, blacksmithpdfs.com. You can find a link to that in the description down below. And then I will also have Jessica at some point add a little card that you can click on. That's a direct link to take you over to our website if you have any interest in purchasing one of these blanks from us. So let's get right into the video. So the blank we'll be forging today is going to be a ladle blank. Now I'm going to be using what I'm calling a traditional style handle with the teardrop design on the end for loop end, and that's going to basically consist of making our ladle. In the kit that you can buy an entire kit or you can buy just the blank itself, but in the entire kit, like I'll be forging here, I will actually be including rivets and forging the whole pieces together. If you order just the blank, you get just the blank, just like that. So the first things first that we're going to work on is probably texturing our handle. That is the quickest, easiest thing to do. And then we will move on to doing the doming of this ladle blank itself. Now, real quick note, everything when it ships to you does have a little bit of has a bit of dross on it, so you will have to clean that off. Very easily done. All you do is just stand it up on edge and tap it like this with a handle, with a hammer, a hand hammer, and all that dross will break off for you nice and easy. So all you gotta do is just tap the edges like that, kind of at an angle, and maybe you guys can see some of that dross is falling off there. Again, pretty simple to remove, no problem. Obviously, you could take this to a belt sander or a flat disc on an angle grinder to clean that off and clean it up. Likewise, this handle will have the same thing. I find it's best to do your dross removal while it's still cold before you do it hot. That way you don't accidentally beat any of the dross into the final product, because the dross is fairly hard and difficult to get out of a surface after you've done hardened it up there, after it's been forged into the surface, I should say. So there you go. Nice, quick and easy. Dross is removed. So let's go ahead and get this forged. Okay, so the first step in this process, we're going to heat our handle material up. We're going to forge it on edge like this a little bit. I like doing this because it gives this a little bit extra length in the handle material. Now you're going to notice that it's going to start cupping on you. You can address that by just taking that right out of it, just like so. Hammering that right on the flat. As soon as you hear the dink of the anvil from underneath, stop hitting it. That means you've gotten it flat in that area. And so that gives it a little bit more waste to the product there. I like that. You know, so come in here when it's a little bit more at a dark heat, it won't cup as much, but that's a great time to help clean up any transitions that you may have. Get her straight. There we go. So now we'll put it back in the fire, bring it up to heat again. So for this particular handle, I'm just going to do a simple ball peen texture across the surface. Now you don't have to texture this handle. You don't have to do anything to it at all other than maybe reshape it a little bit to your own liking. This is where the sky's the limit. Since most of the forming and the hard stuff has already been done by cutting this thing out and having a blank already pre-started for yourself, everything else is easier from there on out. So that's just something to keep in mind there, that you don't necessarily have to do exactly the same thing that I'm doing. You could do your own thing. Add chisel lines, cross beam texture marks, really do these however you like. So there we go, nice and hot. And then I'm just gonna add a ball peen texture all over this piece. Quick, rapid hammer blows will do that. Try not to hit the same place twice. Just give it a good once over. all over the handle material there. Now, as this piece cools down, you're gonna want to go ahead and throw it back in the fire, because there will be a difference in texture if you don't. You either have to start hitting the piece a lot harder to get the same detail in the texture, or what'll happen is the texture will shallow out and you won't end up getting all that nice looking texture in the piece. So something to keep in mind there, that you want this to stay nice and hot while you're texturing it. And again, ball peen texture is not necessarily everybody's cup of tea. You can do it however you would like. That's why it's your handle. Also at this stage, if you're going to add a touch mark, now would probably be the time. I recommend down close by the pan body. Be nice. We'll add my touch mark to the bottom here. And there we have it. All right. So as you can see here, we've got this done, hopefully. What we've done here is we've stopped at about 3/4 of an inch or so, or about 16 mil up from the end here. Or 20 mil up from the end. We want to stay off of that because we want nice clean area that we can then drill. This is going to be covered by the pan anyhow, by the pan body or the ladle body, if you will, so you won't end up seeing that. So we need this to be nice clean, so that way we can drill it for our rivets to rivet it to our ladle body. On to the next step. Okay, so now using the same ball peen, I'm going to come to the crook. If you have a step in your anvil, you can do it there. I like to give this a little bit more of a cup or dimension. Again, stop short of that 3/4 of an inch or so on the end. But I like to allow this thing to have a bit of cup to it. I like that a lot better myself. It gives it a little better feel in the hand. And in my opinion, it makes the thing just a little bit more of a completed look. So again, I was just using the same ball peen there to give it a little bit of a cup to it, as you can see there, a scooping effect. Now we're going to straighten this up. You will have to straighten this, and it is my suggestion after you rivet your handle onto your ladle, we will then shape this. You can give this a little bit of direction if you like. Now if you want to do it here and now, just simply set it on the anvil like this and just hammer straight down, and that'll already start giving it a bit of curvature, if you will. You can also hammer over something like the horn and go that direction as well, if you would like. Be careful of giving this too much arch, like you see this. That won't feel very good at all. So there's a fine line between it being correct and not. So I like to just give it a little bit of an arch, but not a bunch. Just enough to where maybe it sits off the surface of the anvil about 1/4 of an inch or so. And there we go. There you have it. So we'll brush this up. Voila, just like so. There's one pan handle, ball peen texture pan handle. Now we'll take a pause on this and we will move over and work on the actual ladle portion itself. So before we get onto the ladle blank itself, you may be asking yourself, Roy, I don't have a swage block. And true, it is easier to do this if you have a swage block like what you see here. This is a green Menegal. I don't know how to pronounce their actual name properly. I believe that there's another company in the US is making a similar type of situation here for a swage block. That is Holland Anvil. You can check them out as well. They do have options for swage blocks that have depressions for ladle blanks and things of that nature. But say, hey, I'm on a tight budget. I really can't afford getting a swage block to undertake some of these projects that you're talking about. You can do everything that I'm doing in this video and others in a simple cupping tool like this. I actually have a video here on YouTube. I'll have Jessica link up to that hopefully somewhere here in the cards. It'll be linked down in the description as well. I have a video on YouTube already of making this particular cupping tool. All it is basically a piece of pipe with the edges rolled over, and then I cut it off and then just welded a thing to the bottom of this. This could be a hardy shank, so it could go in your hardy hole. This I just made up to, bite into, say, a vise. So you can actually form this over this just fine. What you would do is you would use the same hammer. You would use probably a nice rounded face hammer or a ball peen that could fit inside the circumference of this piece here, and just hammer straight down, and then work your plate left and right until you get the desired curvature all around that you're looking for. Now, I will, for simplicity's sake for myself, because I am trying to keep this to a clean and tidy tutorial, I will be using a swage block myself. But again, you can use one of these, and we may go over that at a later date in another video and show people all the various things that you can do with just a cupping tool itself. There's one other option that I'd like to point out as well. You can also shape things over a wood block or a wooden stump. Blacksmiths have been using wood stumps for just thousands of years to make depressions into and then hammer things like this into. And yes, you can hammer steel hot into wood. The wood will eventually fail, it'll go away, but it's a sacrificial piece anyhow. So if you do have a chunk of wood laying around, you can then also do the same thing, hit on this. This will burn away slowly underneath and create a cavity or a depression, and you can raise up something like that out of that. So there's multiple options. You don't just have to stick with a really fancy tool. So without further ado, let's get to forging this piece, shall we? Okay, we got our piece nice and hot. I'm going to start it in the larger swage depression and start it sinking down. The goal here is really not necessarily to hammer it against the block when you hear those dinks. The goal is just to start the depression. So this way, hopefully, we can fit it into the smaller swage block and then hammer it straight down. Hold it, and we'll get another heat on this. That'll make that a lot easier. Alrighty, so there we go. We've got that hammered down in there, and there is our nice little ladle end. Give me a second, I'll grab my handle as well. Plow, just like so. Little small ladle. So now, the next thing that we need to do is we actually need to cup this ever so slightly. So this way it matches the radius of our ladle cup itself. So real easy to do this. We'll move this out of the way. We're going to put this in a swage depression. If you don't have a swage depression, you can use any sort of swage like this that might be going into the anvil top. You can also use that little trick of using the step, or like that space, right, the transition between the horn of the anvil and the anvil surface itself, and use that to curve this as well. We're just going to hammer this ever so lightly, and that's going to give it a nice radius to follow our previous radius. I'm just hammering that in that block like so, and that'll make that fit that other piece a lot better. Set that down, pick this back up, and just like so, that fits a lot snugger on that piece without any gaps and things of that nature. So that's what we are wanting. We wanted to have that extra little bit of curvature there. Now after you've gotten to this point, now it's time to drill the holes in this piece and rivet it together. Okay, so I'm going to very quickly explain my order of operations for assembling not only the skillets that I offer, but the ladles as well. Ladles and spatulas, and really any riveted blank or any rivet period that I usually do. This is my order of operations, so pay close attention to this part because I may not mention it or fail to mention it in another video. Hopefully I don't, but things happen. So I center punch mark where I'm going to be drilling my holes. You'll get a package of 2 1/4-inch rivets, and so therefore we are going to drill a hole in from the edge so that the diameter of this rivet is far enough away from the edge to leave at least 1/8 of an inch all around the diameter of the hole. So that's where you want to put your center punch mark. And so you got a tiny little 1/4-inch rivet. It'll go in 1/8 inch in from each edge. So from this edge here and this edge here. I like to drill both holes in my handle first. This is your template for when you lay over those center punch marks to drill your ladle piece itself. You want one constant piece. It's easier to have your handle as your constant than it is a radius like this, because later we will mark these and then drill on those holes. So again, it's a lot easier to do this part first, use that to line up on your ladle, and then drill the holes in your ladle afterwards. And same thing with skillets or spatulas. It's easier to do that. So let's get on with it. We'll get this drilling. Okay, so here we are at the workbench. I'll show you very quickly how I'm going to set up for this. I am going to get this vise grip on here, nice and tight. A pair of locking pliers, if you will. I'm going to get this lined up about what looks right to me. And then I'm going to lock this in nice and tight with that. And then now we have our area that we're going to be drilling. So I like to do that. So this way I have a nice point of reference, and I've locked this down. So now I will just drill through this hole, through this piece, and then I will install the first rivet. That's kind of key. I'm going to install the first rivet, and then I will go back afterwards, and I will drill this hole then, because this will be locked down. I will drill this hole and then rivet this piece separate. So it's kind of a back and forth here, but it ensures that everything stays nice and lined up. If you just drill 2 holes and then you go to rivet one, the other hole will not line up. So I like to drill both holes in the handle, drill 1 hole through, rivet that, and then come back and finish drilling this as well. And again, we'll be setting these rivets cold, so that's really not an issue. So with the piece, with the hole already drilled in it, and it's still in its Vise-A-Grip clamp, what we're going to do is we're going to insert the rivet head through with the domed head portion facing to the inside of the bowl. I'm going to lay it on the tip of the horn and balance it on that rivet and on the rivet head itself, and I'm going to push down with adequate thumb pressure. And then I'm just going to rivet this piece right on down. Just like so. So now I can take the clamp off and that shall hold itself in place. Now, one thing you want to do at this stage, you do want to make sure that you have good confirmation. If you don't know what that is, that's kind of a farming term there for judging cattle. Anyways, nonsense. Don't listen to me. Other than let's go back. Get on point, Roy. Rabbit trail. Woo! Disaster averted. Confirmation means you basically want this to be straight in line. You don't want this handle to be cockeyed at this point before you drill your next hole. Now I will also drive this down nice and tight there, and just make sure that this thing is really good and tight and it's looking good. So as long as the handle looks square to you, and you can just sight down it like a piece of lumber, just look down the piece like this and make sure that the bowl doesn't look like it's tilted up on one edge or the other, and then you should be good to go. So now I will go over, I will drill this hole, and I'll be right back with you. So now we're back. We've got our second hole drilled. We're going to put our rivet through, just like so. Balance it again with a little balancing act. Now this time we're going to hold the handle away from ourselves. And we're going to just drive that rivet down nice and tight, like you see there. Okay, so there you have it. Rivets are drawn down nice and tight. This thing is not going anywhere in your lifetime or the customer's lifetime as well. So now on to the finishing work. There's several things that you can do with this. You could just sand all this nice and smooth, leave it raw like this for the customer. You can also season this if you would like to do as well, which is basically just like you season cast iron. You would heat this up in the oven and wipe it down with whatever your oil of choice is. Heat it up in the oven to about 500 degrees or so, and that will smoke off and it'll season the finish. And that could be recommended as well. But again, you could sell the product like this or keep it for yourself or so. If you are going to use it, or if you're going to sell it to a customer, be sure that you're using a oil that is, if you're going to season it, that is a oil that will not cause problems for like allergies. If you do, I used to season all my stuff with coconut oil. Some people are allergic to coconut, and so I had to put a disclaimer in my listings about the fact that it was seasoned with coconut oil. So just be mindful of that. If you are going to sell these, that some people may have food allergies, and you'll want to finish this off. But there you have it. Nice, simple. Easy to do. That's the main key. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, you can hit that like button. If you want to see more videos like it, hit that subscribe. And if you're interested in purchasing one of these blanks or the many other blanks that we have available now over at our website, blacksmithpdfs.com, be sure to check that out. So that's the end of this video. God bless you all, and we'll catch you on the next one. Thanks for watching.